I'm happy to announce that Maxroll has updated all of our stuff to 2.5. With that has come, the new tier lists, new build guides, and things like that. Today we'll be covering the late game tier lists. As you can see here in the late game tier list page, I'll leave a link for all the stuff in the description below. There'll be a link for Maxroll as well. But as you can see, we added a ladder and a non-ladder. So you can go back and click this and it'll bring you to the previous tier list that we had, because this new tier list is going to be taking terror zones and Sunder charms into account. You actually see a number of these builds being dropped down a tier or so, but don't worry, it's not that they've actually gotten weaker. These builds are actually the exact same, if not stronger than they were. It's just a matter of the 2.5 changes kind of shifted the core of the game, so we had to redefine what S tier actually means. Season 1's S tier versus Season's 2 S tier. Season 2 is about, give or take, like 2 times as powerful as it was before. Again, this is because of the addition of the new Sunder charms and terror zones. These are all perfectly viable builds still, or else we would have just taken them off. Now with all of that out of the way, let's start off with the Amazon and take a look. So, as we've seen before, the Lightning Fury is probably the strongest character in the entire game and is going to be receiving some of the most benefit from the Sunder charms, because the Sunder charms are going to break all the immunities, and if she's already running Infinity, she's going to be doubling her damage, if not more, through all this pierce that she's going to gain. Lightning Strike is just stronger as well, and all of these builds can pretty much do Ubers really easily. I did actually make a post about this a while ago that you can check out from the PTR, and I have some footage from back then if you would like to check that out. There'll be a link for that in the description as well. A Freezing Arrow stays at C this season because that buff with the Cold Rupture Sunder charm was actually really going to help out with her damage and be able to farm more spots. Now, unfortunately, things like poison and physical, as well as magic builds, kind of didn't receive as much love from these because there's not nearly as many immunities, and we already had a really good way of dealing with them through various curses and effects, thus making the Strafe Amazon, Multiple Shot, Jab Fend, and Plague Javazon all bump down a tier. Again, that is not to say that these are not perfectly viable. Now with the star next to the name, that means we added a new build. The Exploding Arrow Amazon is now actually kind of viable because there's so many low HP monsters that are fire immune. For example, like a bunch of Fallen. Now on this tier list, you can actually click any of these builds to be able to see a link for a build guide. For example, just click like Multiple Shot Amazon, and it'll bring you to that guide. So if you are interested in taking a look at any of these things or seeing more information on them, you can go and do that. Now moving on to the Assassin. I was not actually sure that the Assassin was going to see any love because when the first PTR came out, traps were not actually receiving any benefit from the Sunder charms. Same thing with minions and things like that. Now with the power of the Sunder charms actually coming to traps, then the Lightning Sentry Assassin is going to stay in the S tier. Same thing with Fire Blast. Fire Blast is actually a very underrated build in my opinion. This build has so much damage potential, especially with these new Sunder charms. Now Dragon Talon's going to be going down this time just for the lack of physical immunes throughout the game. Wake of Fire is going to have mass AoE, and it'll also have the benefit of these charms. Phoenix Strike Assassin does move down, but is still a very solid build. Same thing with Blade Fury. Whirlwind Assassin is going to be staying the same. And then we have the new Rift Assassin as of this season, which I believe Teo made, so go send him some love. Now with the Barbarian, everything stays the same as it was last season, so this makes it pretty simple. Berserk, Goldfine being S, Double Throw A. For B we have Warcry, C we have Leap Attack, Frenzy, and Whirlwind, and then in F we have the Werewolf Barbarian. Now with the Druid, we had to make some decisions here. We have Fissure and Tornado being A and B respectively. The Fury, Summon, Fireclaws, and Rabies Druid builds, however, did have to go down by 1 tier. Again, this is just because S tier is so much stronger than it used to be. So moving on to the Necromancer. We have Poison Nova Necromancer. This thing still dominates. And yes, you'll be doing physical damage and fire damage and poison damage, but this build is just so strong, and you have so many options with this build through curses and utilizing the charms with AoE, and yeah, it's just very, very good build. S tier for sure. Summon Necromancer is just a strong build. Again, it has Corpse Explosion. The Necromancer has Corpse Explosion, basically, and that's why it just kind of stays the same. You can use either the Fire Charm, or you could use the Physical Charm to be able to benefit. So it all pretty much stays the same. Now, magic builds such as the Hammered In and Foe didn't really see a change here. These builds are just the king regardless. Blessed Hammer, of course, being S. Fist of Heavens being S, Smite being S just for its job in the Ubers. Dream Paladin actually did stay in A because it is just stronger now. Like with the Sunder charms, you can just kill everything with procs or just charge into anything, melee anything. You can take it all out. Holy Fire is actually very, very strong and stays in B as well. But Zeal did move down 1 just because it's a physical build. Doesn't mean it's bad by any means. It just doesn't have as much AoE. And you guessed it, because all these things really affect all elemental builds, the Sorceress has seen a lot of changes. So in the S tier, we have Lightning and Blizzard. Of course, no big surprise there. But we did actually move Nova up a tier just because the amount of damage you can deal and the amount of AoE you can have against any monster in the game, especially when you have Infinity, you just decimate the battleground. So then Fireball Meteor, you can go into Chaos Sanctuary and just slap the monsters. We have a new build, and that is Frost Nova. The Frost Nova Sorceress was added in just because it was actually super relevant, especially with the new Sunder charms. It just kind of flattens everything, especially on players 1. Again, it's mostly a players 1 build, but it just does the same thing as Nova, but with CC and cold damage. Now with the Firewall Sorceress, she goes up multiple tiers here just because she has so much damage. She goes into the Ubers and flattens them. Now we had to make some difficult decisions here when we came over to the hybrid builds, but you'll notice that they're all B tier, and B tier is super solid still. Just remember again that tier list kind of got stretched out, so these aren't going down per se. Technically they all have more viability and options than they did before, especially with the terror zones and things like that, but their top end damage lacks a bit with the new Sunder charms. So pure element builds are just better now with Sunder charms. So that's why the hybrids all go down or stay in B. Frozen Orb just stays in B just because damage does lack a little bit, but it doesn't mean it's not a great starter. Hydra moves down 1 as well, but again, these things are all stronger than they were. Definitely go give them a shot if it interests you at all. Now Blaze is kind of a meme build, but it was added and it's the Sorceress, so it does damage in specific ways. I guess you just run around and do damage. Go check out the guide. I believe Dark Humility made that. But that concludes pretty much the late game tier list. Again, this is the late game tier list. We can go over the ladder tier list if that is something you guys are interested in, so you can hear the methodology on some of our decision making. The whole Maxroll team put a bunch of time and effort into all of this tier list, including the whole site, really, all the guides, and we even added a new Terror Zone tier list. I'll probably cover that if you guys want me to. We added new resources, we updated planner, and a whole bunch of other things. So a lot of work is put into all this stuff, and you know, go check out everybody's channel, follow them, subscribe, do whatever you can to support it if you do enjoy our work. If you want to help me out and help more people see some of this information, be sure to like the video, and if you subscribe, it would also help me out as well. Anyways, guys, much love. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic ladder. Which builds are you going to be playing with these new late game tier lists coming out? Much love. You are all beasts.